Okay, very exciting right now. So we are now joined by Dave Rubin, host of the Rubin Report, and in Australia with the Jordan Peterson 12 Rules for Life tour. So Dave, welcome to the show.
Good to be with you guys.
Yeah, we'll start there. So how are you enjoying Australia?
Well, so far so good. Right before we started here, I had to ask you guys what day it was. So it's been a little crazy. I mean,
you didn't even get the month right. I'm a bit worried about you on the schedule.
This is April 2020, right?
Yeah,
that's
exactly,
where we're at right now. Yeah.
And
I mean, it's been nutty. Look, I had to get on a 15-hour flight from LA to Sydney, then a 5-hour flight from Sydney to Perth. Did a couple shows in Perth. Then we jumped over to Adelaide. We're here in Melbourne.
Yep.
How was
that's
that?
Right.
That was pretty decent.
That was actually a very good pronunciation.
That's
Americans really struggle with Melbourne.
We say Melbourne.
Yeah.
I was trying to do something halfway decent.
I
got to get it right for tonight.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You got it.
And then we're bouncing around for a few more stops after. And we're doing the Opera House a couple times in Sydney. I mean, this thing has just been unbelievable. And to see what really amazes me about it more than anything else is that the people that come to these shows, say in Los Angeles and St. Louis and Chicago, they're thinking the same things that the people here in Australia are thinking, which is the same things that people in Oxford are thinking and in Toronto. So there is actually a worldwide movement sort of based in personal responsibility, sort of getting yourself together and figuring out, fix yourself before you fix the world. And it's real, and it's powerful. So it's just been incredible.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are there any major differences between Australian audience and others? Are they more receptive, maybe less?
Well, so far, I mean, the audiences here have been fantastic. I mean, just enthused. There's one little difference that I can tell from the American audiences to the European audiences usually is that American audiences are a little rowdier, where European audiences are a little more, they'll sort of sit and clap a little more reserved. Australians are a little bit more like Americans, which I like. So if I'm messing with the crowd and I'm warming up, getting everybody laughing before Jordan comes out, I want everybody to be as crazy as possible. So we've had more of that in Australia. But the themes, I mean, when I talk to people at the meet and greets after, this idea that, everyone's afraid that this mob is coming for them and free speech is being chilled and, so bouncing around the world and talking to people face to face and seeing that, wow, these problems are universal. These are not just little imaginary things in our mind or just things that are happening just here or just back home for me, that we're all having these issues and thinking about the same things. It's actually very cool and very empowering. So I'm feeling great about everything. I'm nervous about the future of the world, but I'm feeling good about sort of what we're doing to fight that, let's say.
Well, we'll get on to the future of the world in a second. But So you're on tour with Jordan Peterson, two of the great figures of the intellectual dark web. Two guys on tour. What's it like? You guys hitting the town much, trying to find beef restaurants for Jordan?
Yeah, well, we eat a lot of steak, right? Because this guy, he's doing this carnivore diet. People don't believe it, but he quite literally only eats steak.
Yep.
Basically, steak, club soda. That's pretty much it with some salt. That's it. Sometimes he has hot water. That's his, if he's really
what a
feeling,
man.
If he's really feeling
hot
funky,
water. You've got to be
he has some
me.
hot water, yeah. So we've eaten a lot of steak. Yeah. We bounce around. Last night we went to basically we thought we were going to a cabaret show and like a burlesque show. It turned out that it was basically an open mic comedy night.
All right.
So it was pretty rough, and it's hard for me as a comic to watch open micers. It's kind of painful. But it turned out that basically out of the audience it was like 8 comics, like 4 other people, and all the comics recognized us. So it was like, it was kind of fun to be there and chat with some of them and just find out what the comedy scene's like here. And then, yes, we had a steak dinner after that. So, Jordan's also here with his wife, so they go do museums. I went to, like a kangaroo and koala park the other day. So I'm having a great time. It really, I love being on the road. It's fun. I'm doing shows like this and I get to meet other people who are doing interesting things and it's really cool.
Yeah. So with the Adelaide stop on the tour, I noticed there were a few protesters outside and you tweeted that Jordan, they were chanting that Jordan Peterson hated gay people.
Yeah, they basically wrote my act.
Yeah. Well, that must have been a hard way for you to find out.
Yeah, I had no idea that he's anti-gay. And then I realized there's a guy outside wearing a rainbow cape. Obviously, Jordan's anti-gay. It's all, that's the thing. It's like, we've seen this consistently that as we do this tour and, these hit pieces keep getting written about Jordan. He's for enforced monogamy, which just means marriage. He hates gay people. He hates trans people. All of these things. It's like if you guys go to one of these shows, and anyone that's listening to this that has attended one of these shows, all this is about is cleaning up your life. He is trying to give people the tools to clean up their life. The idea that any of this has to do with bigotry or racism or anything even remotely close to that is crazy. But unfortunately, this is sort of the media world that we live in. Jordan's popular, so the media has a vested interest in attacking him because they know it will get them clicks.
Yeah.
And, there's very little journalistic integrity left, apparently worldwide. I thought it was an American phenomenon, but it's pretty much everywhere. So it's just a bit of a game. But, as Jordan, I think, would say if he was here, the more that these hit pieces come out, the stronger he's become. I mean, nothing has taken him down, and the ideas are spreading, and people are showing up to these events. So, we try not to focus too much on that portion of it.
That sounds like something we should attend, James, to clean up our lives.
Yeah.
Right,
clean up your room, guys. That's the main thing. Start with your bedroom and then see what happens.
Well, that sounds like a great idea. Let's get on to the intellectual dark web.
Yeah.
So our viewers are pretty familiar with it. You're, at the vanguard of the IDW. What's next for it? Where do you see it ending up in the future?
Well, we got to figure out what this thing really is. For these last couple of years, while it was sort of under the radar, it was just an interesting collection of people having conversations that we thought were the right conversations to have. It was often based, at the higher level around free speech, but then we were talking about gender, and we were talking about politics, obviously, and a series of other things. We were talking about meaning and truth and value of religion and atheism and all of these things. Then the New York Times article came out and it kind of burst forth into the mainstream. And now the question is, well, all right, we know that people are watching. We know that people are listening. And it's not just, look, Rogan's doing 3-hour podcasts. My show's obviously taken off. All the guys are, Jordan's on tour. Sam Harris is on tour. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing. And the question is, well, what are we really? Are we a television network? Are we a road touring group? Are we some version of both of those? Are we a podcast network? I mean, we're trying to figure it out. And, at the same time, there are these platform wars going on where we're watching YouTube and Twitter kind of eat themselves, and we're watching trolls take over everything, and just the amount of hatred that's everywhere. And that's what we've all been fighting. I mean, the whole idea of the IDW was, let's have serious conversations, although sometimes fun conversations, about important topics. And we're watching now the internet sort of eat itself. It's like it was really good for a long time in terms of getting ideas, connecting people. And it still is. I mean, right? Like, that's why I'm here. That's why you guys do what you do. But we're watching some other version of it now where everyone's just hating on everybody. And we want to figure out how to clean that up, because I think that was the basic idea of the IDW. It was like, can you take a couple interesting, potentially unpopular positions and talk them out with some people that you probably disagree with? We've been pretty good at that, but now we have to figure out how to level it up into is it a business? Is it a political party? I mean, I think all of these ideas are there, and we're kind of bouncing around. And by the way, we don't all agree on exactly what it should be. We all have different wants and needs, and we're all doing kind of different things. But that's the cool thing. It's like, if we can just maintain a certain level of respect for each other and sort of help each other when we can, maybe it doesn't become a centralized, cohesive thing. It's just an idea factory, let's say, something like that.
Yeah, if you guys do become a political party, I mean, I hope the presidential debates can go a bit longer than what we're used to.
Well, look, people keep asking, is one of us going to run for office or something? And, everyone seems to think that Shapiro maybe would run for president. It's like, I certainly don't. I would maybe be press secretary for a horrible, scandal-ridden week, but that's about it.
Well, it did wonders for the Mooch's career. If you just come in guns blazing, 11 days you're out.
Was it 11 days? I would do. He wears these sunglasses.
He does.
Too, so yeah.
Think about it.
And he's on Celebrity Big Brother now, so
is that right?
It's a big time to be the Mooch.
Yeah. So I like that guy, by the way. We'll see what we are. I think generally speaking, most of us view ourselves as people that are just facilitating conversation so that people can get some of the right ideas to be armed with to go out in your life and be able to have these conversations, to be able to talk about why you should, treat trans people with respect, but you shouldn't be for the government dictating what pronouns you're allowed to use, things of that nature. And these are becoming increasingly difficult things to talk about. And for whatever reason, there seems to be only 20 or so people that are willing to have these conversations. And my hope is that the more that we do this, that there will be more and more people that will do it. And then maybe 5 years from now, there'll be 20 other great shows like mine. And I'll go find something else to do because it will have shown we did something. We did something valuable. So as long as there's a fight to be fought, we'll keep fighting it. But if we start winning and things start balancing out in the universe, well, I'll go retire. I'll find something to do.
Yeah.
I like the beach in Perth was pretty good.
Yeah, well, you should see the beaches you're about to see in Sydney. Like, they are fantastic. So,
all right, nice.
Maybe skip the beaches in Melbourne.
All right.
So I was going to say, like, with the intellectual dark web, how do you feel about that as an actual name? Because it's like, it makes you guys sound secretive, but they're actually very popular ideas.
Yeah, well, that was sort of what when Eric Weinstein came up with it, that was sort of what he was going for, something kind of tongue-in-cheek, because it sort of sounds dangerous, because you hear dark web and you think, is it that porn, or they're selling drugs, or like something like that. But then once you get to the content, you're going to go, holy cow, there's actually something here. So it was in a way, it was like a setup. You know what I mean? Like for the people that didn't know what it was like, ooh, what is this dangerous thing? And then suddenly you're hearing these ideas and you're going, whoa, this is a lot of common sense, actually. You know, there's nothing scary about this. So that was a little bit of why Eric used it. I think, you know, ultimately, if we become a company or a political party or whatever it morphs into or doesn't morph into, I don't know that name itself will fully make sense. I think the IDW, maybe we change what the letters mean exactly. I think something like that kind of sound, IDW, kind of works, right? Yeah, and I wouldn't get too hung up on the label part of it, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
So you, obviously, as part of the intellectual dark web, a lot of your audience are young people, and we do a lot of work with young people here at the IPA. Is it the fact that, and young people, you know, receive a lot of this postmodern stuff in tertiary education and the rest of it.
Oh, yeah.
Does the fact that you have a lot of young fans and a lot of young people who are interested in these ideas, does that make you optimistic about the future?
Yeah, you know, it's like I consider myself a world-weary optimist. Like I'm not a blind-eyed optimist. Like I just think things are going to get better. Actually, I think things are going to get worse, and it gives me a challenge I wake up every morning and I have a mission every single day. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not just a mission. I have things to do, you know, that I view are important things to do and vital. Like I'm not just doing this to be nice to you guys. I want these ideas to travel. So it's like if your podcast blows up and then it's like, whoa, there's like a home of these ideas in Australia, that would be freaking amazing. You know what I mean? Really, I mean that. So, it's like, I don't know what's going to happen with all of this, but I think if we just keep going, we can show people that there's a way out. And I think, to your question, I think young people are being indoctrinated with this nonsense, and it's counter to human logic. It's counter. What you have is your mind, and if you use your mind, you can figure out what is best for your life. But what we're being sold in this postmodern, nonsensical world is that the government or some other higher power, but not God, it's some other human-made power, knows what's right for you. And if you would just give up your autonomy to it, because it sounds good, it all sounds good. We're for gays, we're for black people, we're for women, but none of that means anything. What do you mean you're for gays? Well, are you for gays that disagree with you politically? Like the left isn't that thrilled with me. And then they'll say, well, we're for women. Well, they hate Nikki Haley, a powerful Republican woman. I mean, we could do a litany of these type of things. Are they for black people? They don't seem to like Kanye or Candace Owens. So it's like, you're actually not for these people, but it all sounds good at a very superficial level. And I think what's happening and why the IDW has worked and why, you know, I just was putting these videos on YouTube because that was the way to get them out. But we've now realized it's like, holy cow, the amount of young people. I mean, I see this at the shows. It's like there are 15-year-olds that are showing up to this thing, and there are 70-year-olds showing up to this thing, and they're kind of thinking the same thing. That is incredible. So I'm very hopeful in that way that we can break through. Now, we still got huge problems because we're fighting an algorithm. We don't know if our videos go out to feeds and unsubscriptions and demonetizations and the rest of it. But look, as long as they don't take us out, and you know, like, and I mean that sort of like, as long as they don't kill me, and as long as they don't, you know, knock us off YouTube and the rest of it, we've got a chance.
Yeah.
So let's just keep going.
That's something I've noticed about my circle of friends is that, you know, for a long time I was like the political one of the friends because I worked here at the IPA. But now, like, people in my life I thought were non-political are coming up to me going like, oh, I saw the Rubin Report, or did you see what Ben Shapiro tweeted, or I'm so into Joe Rogan podcast. You guys seem to be really hitting people that don't care about politics, don't really read the newspapers.
Well, you know what it is? This isn't purely political. Like, I'm happy to talk politics if you want. Anything that you want. If you want to ask me like a specific political position that I have, we can do that. But this isn't really political. This is cultural. There is something else happening related to free speech, related to your ability as a free-thinking person to say what you think without being destroyed by the mob or fear that you're going to lose your job. And I'm not talking about crazy racist thoughts. I'm talking about basic things. I'm for small government. Well, if you say that in the United States, the mob will come after you and say, well, you're for small government. That means you want low taxes. And if you want low taxes, that means you don't want to help poor people. And if you don't want to help poor people, that means you don't like black people. And it's like this crazy, it's disconnected from reality. But they've concocted this system in their brain. And this is why the intersectional thing is so crazy. You have all these competing interests that they believe becomes like one, remember, I don't know if you guys are Transformers guys, but they sort of view it like the Constructicons. Like you could take 5 small Transformers and then you'd put them into Devastator and then they'd be the super Transformer. But actually,
maybe that's what the intellectual dark web should do. You should all just become one.
We should become one Voltron-like robot. Yeah, I know. I could be an arm and Sam will be a leg or whatever. Write that down. Yeah. But that's what they think, that using these competing interests, we can take our oppression and our oppression. If we can just link these things together, that will be stronger. And it's actually not the case. And there's so many ways to expose this, simple ways to expose this. So, for example, they'll say they're for gay people and they're for Muslim people. Now, you shouldn't be bigoted towards either one of those groups. But the simple fact is that there's no mosque in America, let's say, that would have a gay wedding. There's not one. Now, all day long, they'll bash Christianity and they'll bash the white white Catholics and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, how can you be for both of these things then? Now, I don't want you to be bigoted towards these people. You should treat them as individuals. But you can't say you're for Islam and you're for gay rights. You can't. Now, maybe Islam will reform. I would hope that it would, but it's not really my job to do that, right? But this competing set of ideas, I think ultimately it will crash down. And I think what we have to do is make sure that the ground beneath it and the respect for your fellow man is there so that when this thing collapses, and it will in a probably horrible way, and I don't know how bad it's going to get before it gets better, that we're not just trying to kill each other.
Yeah. I want to move to digital media. So you are one of the people that's really exploded now that the new sort of digital media is coming through. Like chat shows on CNN and Fox News, they seem to be falling off, and then YouTube shows are on the rise. What do you put that down to? Like, is it just people aren't watching TV anymore?
Well, it's mostly this, right? I mean, it's mostly the phone. We're all walking around with access to the world right here.
Yeah.
So that is the simple answer. I would say the other part is that, cable news did a really poor job of communicating ideas clearly. They all went in on some sort of partisan clickbait thing. So if you watch CNN, you got 6 boxes with people that, are in satellites, and often they're in the same building, but for drama. I mean, this is actually true. I've been on these shows where you're actually in the same building as some of the other people, but they have you sitting in different rooms with different backgrounds. So you appear to be in different places doing very important things, but you're actually literally next door to somebody. And then, everyone's yelling about all these things. And it's like, none of these people have ever accomplished anything. None of them have run businesses. It's just a lot of talking heads. Now, I say that with all due irony in that I am here talking and people know me as an interviewer and as a talker. So I'm not saying that I'm some sort of magical being from the future here. But the difference is we all decided, and the IDW decided, not together. We didn't make a co-decision, but when I started my show, it was basically, I was like, why is no one talking about important things? I mean, it really was that simple. And when I did my first interview show, it was September 9th, 2015 with Sam Harris. And I was like, let's do a long form, deep dive into some seriously important issues. And the mainstream media just won't do that. They've gone so deep on the clickbait. They've gone so deep on the fighting that they can't even get themselves out of it. So they're crumbling. I don't think anyone's paying attention to any of that, too. And that's the other reason they're always going after us now, because it's like they're not getting clicks the other way. They're not getting views the other way. So how do you do it? Well, go after where the clicks and views are. So it's sort of depressing, too, because people see me bashing the media all the time, and it's like, they're like, oh, he hates the media. I want there to be a great media. If there were real journalists, and there are a couple. Tim Pool happens to be excellent. Andy No, we've got a couple. But these are independent people. Give me good journalism. I would be all for it. Like, I'm not trying to destroy journalism. I think it's the most important piece. It's the most extra important piece of a healthy democracy. So I think we're fixing some of that. But I don't even consider myself a journalist.
So in terms of this digital transformation, one of the challenges to it, and you've talked about one of the huge benefits of it, the challenges to it are also increasing censorship from some of these big social media platforms. You recently deleted your Patreon account, I believe. Yeah. What do you think of all that?
I mean, we're fighting a monster here. There's clearly a theme in everything we're talking about here. It's hard to exactly define what it is we're fighting. Are we fighting this terrible set of ideas? Are we fighting tech companies? Are we fighting the government? It's like this giant amorphous thing that we're fighting. The Patreon thing, to me, they booted Carl Benjamin Sargon of Akkad, who's a British, he's a classic liberal YouTuber. Yeah, he's a bit of a troll. There's no doubt about it. And he uses some tactics maybe that I wouldn't use, let's say. But he used the N-word not as a racial pejorative. He used it to use the language of the alt-right, of the real racists, against themselves. Not only did he do that, it wasn't even on his YouTube channel, which was never posted to his Patreon, and that was a complete breach of Patreon's own policies. So basically, Jordan, Sam, and I, we didn't even coordinate this really. Jordan and I did a little bit, but we all sort of viewed this as a massive move of the line of what's acceptable. It's like, it's one thing if they take out Alex Jones and Milo, and I don't even mean this about to use them as specific examples of people that should be taken out, because I would rather leave everybody up.
Yeah.
My policy would be leave them up, and if you don't like them, don't listen, and that's it.
And also for something like Alex Jones, like the best thing that can happen to him is being taken down, because it gives you the evidence of like, see, I'm right. They're trying to shut us down. I'm onto something here.
Not only that, so you feed the narrative, and I've been told by a pretty reliable insider that Alex Jones is actually making more money than ever before, because now he's centralized everything on his own site and all that kind of stuff. But I don't even mean to make it about them. But the point was that this guy, maybe we should have offered those guys better defenses when they were booted from these things. But the point is that this guy, if Carl Benjamin can't be on these sites, I'm pretty sure you guys can't be on these sites, and I can't be on these sites, and a lot of good, decent people can't be on these sites. So we all felt that we have to stand up for something. And, no case is the exact perfect one, but, if you wait for the perfect, I'll do a baseball reference, but maybe you guys can move this to cricket. If you wait for the perfect pitch, so that you can swing at the exact moment, you're probably never going to find that pitch. So sometimes you might swing a little early, sometimes you might swing a little late. And Jordan and I left, and I moved all my support over to my own website, which we obviously control, and we're doing even better than we were doing on Patreon. So, and Jordan's doing just fine, and these ideas are spreading. But yes, fighting this tech thing between what's going on with Patreon and creators' ability to make money, demonetization, where if you talk about controversial things, you're not going to make money. So then what does that do? That's not direct censorship. But if you're trying to make a dime, you might go, well, I got to stop talking about these things that matter, and I better start doing people getting kicked in the nuts and cat videos. So because that's going to get monetized, right?
That is good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And no, nobody's denying that people getting kicked in the nuts is funny. So, there's that. There's shadow banning on Twitter and whether YouTube videos are even going to feeds. Look, I don't even know. I mean, the part of this that's hard to talk about is like, I can't show you the document that says that they're doing all these things. We don't know. We don't know. And the lack of transparency is what's driving everybody crazy. And I think you guys know I'm a free market guy, so I'm not demanding that they do anything. I'm really not. What I want is, and Jordan and I are working on this to some extent, I want some more competition. Let's get more companies and more platforms out there so that people will have more choices. And ultimately, if YouTube is doing stuff that you don't like, you have to weigh, well, I want to put my stuff on YouTube because it's the biggest search, video search site in the history of the world. But at the same time, they're doing stuff I don't like, so maybe I'm going to take all my stuff and put it on a smaller thing and get less views, but feel that I'll have more control of my content. So it's for everyone to decide. And again, that's consistent with everything else I believe about you taking control of your situation, basically.
Yeah, because that was leading into the next one, which is like, do you see a new social media website coming through, which is going to be massively popular?
Yeah, well, I can't say too much, but Jordan and I are working on this platform, and
Please say too
it's
much.
a little. I will take you as close to the ledge, let's say, as possible, right? So we're working on something. It's not going to be as much of a Patreon competitor as we initially intended, because we realized as we were discussing the ideas around it, well, solving the Patreon problem isn't really the problem that people are having with the internet. The problem that people are having is what we referenced a few minutes ago, which is the endless destruction and troll farming and hatred and all this stuff. It's like, we're having important discussions. We treat each other respectfully. There's got to be a way to give our audience access to conversation that won't be as painful and taken over by the trolls. So we're shifting a little bit in that direction. I can't really say that much more about it, but I am look, as long as capitalism exists, I'm hopeful that the human being can figure out how to solve problems. I mean, this is where I see the argument where people are saying, the power that Google and YouTube and Facebook, the power that they have is so unique. It is so profoundly expansive that maybe the government has to get involved, but I don't think the government's that good at anything. So why do I think that they could fix Google? I mean, they can't. Have you been on an American government website? Try paying your property taxes on a California website. You read it's like Prodigy in 1982. 92.
Well,
I don't think the internet was really there then, but something like that.
Yeah, if we ever did want to get to the point where we kill YouTube, all we need to do is hand over the keys to the government. And
Yeah,
like
right,
3
exactly.
weeks,
So
3 weeks.
that's it. Yeah, if you guys don't want video, hand it over to the government.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We'll see.
So we'll talk about the Rubin Report now. So we brought it up, and if anyone like watching this or listening to this doesn't watch the Rubin Report, go out and subscribe right now. It is the best. But so it's incredibly popular for you. It's where you're having all these great discussions. So what was the sort of moment for you where you're like, I might be onto something here. Like, this seems to really be hitting a market.
Yeah. Well, I was doing my show with the Young Turks
Yeah.
before that, and we did a sort of panel show talking about hot topics, and it was very clickbaity. I mean, that's what we learned there, and we were, doing whatever. It was just, we were getting clicks and whatever. It just is what it is. The day that I started at Aura TV was the day that I had Sam Harris on back in September 2015, and Sam had been so unfairly maligned by the media. Much of my political wake-up was credited to him because of that night that I'm sure you guys have seen on Real Time with Bill Maher when Batman, Ben Affleck called him and Bill gross and racist.
One of the great YouTube videos.
It's one of the greatest YouTube videos. If anyone listening to this hasn't seen, I mean, you can so clearly see the disconnect of reality of what's going on in the progressive mind with Affleck. The anger that he had, the inability to discuss nuance, the immediate. I mean, think how hard it would be if we're doing this, right? We're talking for a couple hours. Think how difficult it would be for me to say something where you would get to the point where you would say you're racist. You know what I mean? Unless I was actually like truly espousing real racism. But within 30 seconds, Affleck's calling them racist.
Yeah.
And then I just saw the way the media behaved afterwards, and suddenly everyone in the media is asking if Bill Maher's a racist. And it's like, Bill Maher's been fighting for all your lefty ideas forever, and now he's the bad guy. I didn't even know who Sam Harris was before I saw that thing. I had no idea who he was, actually. Anyway, when I did that first show with Sam, the idea was, well, let's clean up some of these ideas. Let's take all the things that people say you say, and let's get you to be able to respond to them. Let's clip them in a way that's shareable on YouTube and all that. And when we finished that show, I walked right into the control room and I said to all my guys, and we had a big crew at the time, I said, that's what I want to do. It felt real. It felt dense. It felt important. And I think that was the first moment I was like, oh, I'm on to something. But over the next couple months, you can really see it if you go back and watch. Every week I was having somebody that I was like, oh, there's somebody else who's thinking clearly about things. A couple weeks later, I had Majid Nawaz on. I had Christina Hoff Sommers on. I had Douglas Murray on. Other guys that you guys have had on. I had Dennis Prager on. I thought, whoa, there's other people out here who I may disagree with on this or that, but they're doing something mature and honest, and they're not attacking motives. You know what I mean? They're not just trying to destroy. They're not just doing like a scorched earth policy, which is what we have all over the media right now. And then I just kept saying what I think. I mean, really, that's all it is. I don't have an agenda when I sit down with somebody. I try to let their ideas shake out however they may. And I tell my audience what I think. And sometimes I'm going to be wrong. Sometimes I'm going to be right. And that's it.
Yeah, just to jump back for a second. Yeah. In that Ben Affleck video, since we brought it up, I thought it was so interesting for me because, like, I don't want to make too many assumptions about Ben Affleck's life, but it seemed to be, like, legitimately the first time he was ever hearing that point of view.
Right.
Like he'd been talking to his friends and he'd be talking to, like, reading articles he already agrees with. He'd never come across someone that thinks like Sam Harris thinks.
Yeah.
And you just think, like, when we talk about Twitter deplatforming people and YouTube deplatforming people, like the higher ups seem to have the same sort of mindset of just they know their own bubble, and when someone like Sargon Picard says these things, they can't wrap their head around a way that someone would say that if they weren't racist.
And that's exactly why you have to not be afraid to have conversation about difficult things, because then one day you're in a conversation with an adult and they're going to say something that's pretty decent. You know what I mean? That's pretty nuanced and decent, but your only reaction will be, you must be racist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the idea, I mean, this is such a clear, simple idea, and yet this is so hard for the postmodernists and the progressives to understand. You should be able to criticize any set of ideas. A religion is just a set of ideas, whether it's Judaism or Christianity or Islam or any religion. You can criticize the ideas of the religion without being bigoted towards people. And the only way you can do that is if you view people as individuals, not say, oh, all Muslims must think this way, or as we referenced earlier, all gay people must think this way, or the rest of it. And that's all Sam was laying out. We can criticize ideas and not be bigoted towards people. Now, the interesting thing is, if Sam had been talking about Christianity, and by the way, Sam has written a book, Letter to a Christian Nation.
Not the biggest fan.
He's right. He's not a big fan of Christianity, right? But if he had done that exact conversation about Christianity, Affleck never would have called him gross and racist. He would have been all about it. Mm-hmm. So this is sort of the inconsistent worldview that these guys hold. And by the way, I say all this, and I would love to talk to Affleck about it. And maybe he regrets it now. You know what I mean? Maybe he's heard enough and seen enough of the memes about this and the videos critiquing it where he's going, whoa, I really misunderstood something. I have no idea if that's the truth, but that would be a really interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, or in 15 seconds he starts calling you racist.
Or that, I mean, that's most likely what happens, but I would be willing to do that too, you know?
Well, look out for that episode of the Rubin Report. So now this might be a very difficult question.
Yeah.
And I know you're not meant to play favourites.
Yeah.
Who's your favourite guest? Most interesting? Or like weirdest or something like that?
It's almost impossible to say who my favorite guest is. I mean, look, the core guys that you guys know, so Shapiro and Peterson and the Weinstein brothers, those have been the ones that have sort of, the richness of the conversation is what sort of has filled me up enough to be able to understand my ideas better, understand the right ideas better, to go across the world and speak to people and share these ideas. And, you know, I'm also working with, these are pretty high level intellects, right? I'm, you know, Peterson and the Weinsteins, and it's like a lot of times they're saying things. Let's say Sam and Jordan are having this, you know, debate about the nature of truth. It's like they're talking about some seriously high level stuff. And I think one of the skills that I have is that I can distill some of that into something that's a little bit easier for regular people to understand.
Yeah.
Because I consider myself a regular person. I can understand those ideas and I can play in that conversation. But I don't think most people can, and I can't even do it all the time with every single reference to everything. But what I can do is I can take that stuff, that tier, and bring it into something that's a little more understandable for regular people. And I think that that's why people are kind of responding to me that way. But as far as a favorite, I mean, you know, look, what I would say is I'm on tour with Peterson. This thing has changed my life, and it's been amazing watching this guy. We've done 100+ shows already, I think around 120 shows. He's different every single night. Every single night. I don't know any other public intellect that could do anything close to that.
No. Just with the Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson thing, like there was a video of you guys, I think it was in Stockholm, like you, Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson, anyway, debate or something. But I remember just being an hour and a half in of those two going at it on religion, just going, I'm a little out of my depth.
Oh, I think that might have been Douglas.
Oh, Douglas.
Me.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, that is the thing. You're dealing with people who understand things at the highest possible levels, having the most existential, profound conversations possible. They're of course going to do a whole bunch of stuff that the average person can't quite feel out. But at the end, if you can sit with them, and I think this is what my role in this is, if I can sit with them and understand the big ideas, but then give people a little bit of a way, because, you know, most people have jobs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Most people like to do things, play video games or play basketball or whatever you like to do, but you have a little time for some of this stuff. So if I can distill a little bit of that into something that you can take with you and then maybe want to learn more, then maybe watch a video of Sam explaining free will, let's say, or Jordan explaining postmodernism. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool. And what I found before is what you guys are referencing here, that your own friends that aren't particularly political are somehow interested in ideas. And I think that's very cool.
I want to talk about your journey. So we mentioned before how you were on the Young Turks, which if people don't know, pretty progressive website, bit out there.
Yeah.
So you're working there, like, were you already at the time sort of going like, these aren't exactly my people, or what was
you know, it's funny. I get asked this a lot, and I actually don't like talking about it that much because you know, they're doing all sorts of videos about me now that are filled with lies, and you know, in a way I've become more popular than them, so now I have a target on my back with them, and so I'm not gonna. So let's do it this way. I'm not going to talk shit about them, but.
How many times have you watched them react to the 2016 election?
I did watch that several times.
It's a pretty good video.
Yeah, I did watch that several times. But without throwing them under the bus, what I would say is this. I was always liberal. I came from a family of liberals. My family, we used to argue about politics all the time. Every holiday at my house was 30 people, adults and kids in different generations, arguing about all this stuff. And then dessert was served, and we forgot what the argument was, and we do it again the next day. So I always was around sort of healthy argument and an ability to agree to disagree and all that. When I got there, it was a little more left than I was, in that I did realize early on, like, everyone that they disagreed with was a racist and a bigot and a homophobe, and I never liked that. I'm sure I played along with it, and I'm sure you could find videos of me doing that kind of stuff, so I'm not pretending that I'm higher than thou. But the longer that I was there, the more I realized how faulty the arguments were. And then, of course, Cenk became one of Sam Harris's serial offenders, serial liars. I mean, just lying about what he said. So that really woke me up. And then there were a couple other moments. Charlie Hebdo, when that happened, and I was on air, and one of the guys was screaming how you can't offend these people. And it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's like, you lefties, you're supposed to be for gay people. Do you think the Islamists are for gay people, so I shouldn't offend the Islamists? Like, what are you actually saying? So it all started getting wrapped around free speech. And then another moment that really woke me up, I was on air once, and they were showing a clip of Fox News, and there was this guy, David Webb, on. And David, he's a conservative who happens to be black, and I was on Sirius XM radio with him years before, and we were good buddies, and we'd go out to dinner all the time and have drinks. And I know this is a guy who believes his ideas. He just happens to be a black conservative. One of the co-hosts saw they play the clip, and he goes, "What? He's a token. He's a sellout. He's an Uncle Tom." And I thought that was the first time where it really crystallized with me, where I talk about the pernicious racism of the left. It's like they say that everyone else is racist, but if you look at a black man who thinks something other than you think he should think, and then you call him an Uncle Tom or a sellout, guess who the racist is?
Yeah.
It's you. But that is so unclear to them because they believe their ideas are so true and so right that they always care about lived experience, except when lived experience goes against what they think. So this is why Peter Boghossian, who I've had on a bunch, talks about this postmodern thing as a secular religion because it's become religious to them. So there were several moments like that. That one was a real one where I thought, whoa, now I see what this racism is. This, what Bill Maher calls it, although I think it was originally from George W. Bush, believe it or not, the soft bigotry of low expectations. That you look at certain people based on their skin color or religion and say, oh, we can't treat you with the same intellectual rigor that we treat someone else because you guys are kind of dumber.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. And that's pernicious racism. It's not overt, oh, you're black, this. It's this other insidious thing that you can't quite put your finger on, that then you realize, oh, it's the new racism of the day, I would say.
Yeah, that's what we saw with Kanye West. Like, Kanye West goes from saying George Bush doesn't care about black people in the wake of Katrina, and now he's a fan of Trump. And it's like he's an apostate. He's left the religion. People are just, they've gone nuts over it.
Yeah, and look at the way the media uniformly attacked him. Now, it doesn't even matter what you think about Trump specifically. But the idea that Kanye was willing to talk to the guy, was willing to put on the freaking hat, whatever it is, the media went, oh, he's crazy, he's on drugs, just like a litany of crazy things.
Yeah, it's like we need to talk about mental illness now. Like, yeah.
I mean, it's genuinely, that's a mental illness. I think if we want to talk about mental illness, it's the desire for every time a minority speaks up to destroy them. That seems like more of a mental illness than anything that Kanye's got. So this is what we have to fight, and we have to be braver in fighting it. Because guess what? It is going to come for anyone, for all of us. If you are listening to this and you think, well, I could just not talk about this and I can just let them keep encroaching on gender roles, or not gender roles, on gender pronouns and who's racist and who's not and all of these things, eventually you are going to have an idea that is going to be pretty simple for you, but it's going to be really outside of the mainstream. It's happening right now. And they're going to come for you. So don't think that just by being quiet, this thing's going to pass you by. It just won't.
So you made a video about how you left the left, and it got a massive reaction.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I think it's the #2 PragerU video of all time. It was the #1, and then Ali Stuckey did this thing about gender roles, actually, and she's now #1, I think. Well, it really was the 3-minute synopsis of how I woke up. And really the fundamental, what it really comes down to more than anything else is that if you're a lefty, if you're a progressive, you believe in the collective. You believe in looking at people based in groups. And that has nothing to do with liberalism. Liberalism is rooted in the individual, that we should have individual rights, we should have respect for the fellow man, we should have the light touch of government, and we should be able to agree to disagree. That's what really liberalism is. And these days, that's more associated with libertarianism or conservatism, and I'm actually fine with that. But when I explained that so clearly in that video, a lot of people woke up to it. I mean, that more people come up to me about that because it's simple and it's got pleasant music and graphics and it's 3 minutes instead of an hour-long conversation, and people go, whoa, now I understand what's been going on the left too. And there are very few good liberals left on the left. I would say if you're just an old school liberal who sort of believes in live and let live, and we can argue what the parameters of government power should be, you have way more in common with, say, the center right of America today, which I think has a much richer ability to have discussion and debate ideas than anything on the progressive left. So I would say the progressives are a small, loud minority who have kept us all in fear that they're going to destroy us. But I would say virtually everyone else, whether you're a MAGA Trump guy or you're a neocon or a libertarian or an old school liberal or just a base conservative, we all are in the same pot right now. And what we have to fight is that thing.
Yep.
And if we would just be a little bit braver, we'd realize that there's power in numbers. And that I hope that that's what Jordan and I and the rest of us are giving to people, that just be a little bit braver.
And even ordinary people, I'd add to that. Ordinary people that aren't that interested in politics.
Yeah. Well, if you're an ordinary person that does not care about politics, does not care at all, but you still want to joke, you want to occasionally make a joke, how's that going to go for you when the progressives take over?
Yeah, exactly.
Not well. Look like comedy's crumbled around this. I'm doing stand-up again. I had stopped doing stand-up for 5 years. I'm selling out all these clubs now, and it's like all I'm doing is getting up there and just saying what I think. I'm not even writing that many jokes. I'm just having fun with people because comedy has been so bludgeoned by the very people who were supposed to make fun of everything have become the hysteric people that are trying to silence people, and that is so sad for stand-up.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedy as well,
Yeah.
and I thought it was so interesting. Thank you, Pete. I thought it was so interesting what happened.
Don't lie to me. Are you really?
I am actually. Trust me.
Right.
But anyway, so what happened to Louis C.K. with the leaked bit?
Yeah.
The whole special. It seemed to be like there were so many other stand-up comedians who were coming forward like as though they were being the brave ones, saying you can't joke about that. And the Louis C.K. stuff about Parkland was, it's out there, but it's just regular Louis for me, like a guy that I've listened to all of his albums.
Yeah, he's doing the same stuff.
It's literally the same thing. But now, I really saw Judd Apatow really be the boldest person against, you cannot make fun of that topic anymore. There is no way you can make fun of that.
Think of the rank hypocrisy of this. So Judd Apatow, we actually went to the same high school. We're from the same town.
Yeah.
And he's a little bit older than me, so we weren't there at the exact same time, but I know we had some of the same teachers, and we definitely come from this much of the same thing. Yeah. I actually unfollowed him on Twitter a couple weeks ago because I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, you have so bought in to a set of ideas. And think how hard it is for me to, you got to go pretty far bananas for me to unfollow you on Twitter because I like seeing what these people are thinking.
Yeah, I'm this close with Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, I did it with him too. Because that's the thing. These people, so look, you take these guys, they should be relentlessly defending free speech and the ability to be politically incorrect. Where do you think Don Rickles would be at right now, who made fun of everybody? That was the point. He did the most American thing you can do, which is he treated Asians and blacks and Jews and white people, and he treated them exactly the same because he made fun of everybody, and it made everyone realize we're all in it together. But look what's happening now. You guys probably saw this. Family Guy has now said they're not going to do gay jokes anymore. So they did 20 years of gay jokes. They did AIDS jokes and awfully politically incorrect stuff. I mean, Stewie, the whole character of Stewie is that he's gay, basically, right? But now, and Seth MacFarlane made hundreds of millions of dollars on it, I have no doubt. But now we're on the other side, and now are you going to return any of the money? Because I guess you must have done a lot of pretty bad stuff that you're not going to do it anymore, right?
Yeah, there's certain character and plot line threads that I'm remembering, which I'm
right.
like, oh.
Right, exactly. But are you going to, let me get this straight. So you're not going to make gay jokes anymore, but you still make black jokes? Or, are you going to make Jew jokes? I mean, look at Mark Ullman is the worst Jewish stereotype ever. No Jew cares. It's like, that's the point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Make fun of all these things. But this is what they do. And it's like, look, every day I wake up and I'm like, man, I wish George Carlin was alive because he would have had an ability to deal with this in a way that, through comedy, that I don't think anyone else has been able to do properly. But by the same token, he would be getting booed off college campuses because they would say he's an old white man. Yeah. And this is a guy who was a huge lefty in his whole life, right? He was anti-war, he hated Republicans. He used to do jokes about, old white guys that play golf and all that stuff. So he would have given them so much stuff that they loved, but he was politically incorrect, and that's what they hate more than anything else. So it's really weird. I see Sarah Silverman all day long. She's just telling the president to go F himself, and she wanted Milo's book. She tried to get it banned by Simon & Schuster, which ultimately it did, and it's like, oh, I guess we're for comedians for book burning now. It's what happened to you guys? You know what I mean? And I don't say this out of anger. I say this out of respect for comedy and respect for speech. It's like, I don't have to agree with you, but the need to silence everybody.
Yeah, the way I see it
So
is
dangerous.
like, comedians have always been the court jester making fun of the powerful. But now it's like the court jester turns around and goes, actually, I agree.
Yeah.
Like,
This
king's
guy,
the king's
power,
onto something.
Well, that's the thing. It's like progressives think that they're fighting the power. They think that they're fighting the power, except everything that they do is to give the state more power. So they'll tell you how horrible government is, and what's their solution? Higher taxes, more government programs, all of these things. So it's like, if you really hate Trump, let's say you absolutely hate Trump, what should your response be right now? Should you be for doing what the left is now offering, Green New Deals and massive expansions of government, or should you be for curtailing the power that the president and government has over you? That is such an obvious conclusion to me. But that's also why if you take any basic small government ideas, they'll tell you you're racist because it's so obvious if you would just let people hear these ideas.
Yeah.
So they say they're fighting the power when all they're doing is actually taking more power from people to be individuals and handing it over to the government. It's a profoundly horrible set of ideas.
Yeah, I love people on the same day saying, Trump is all these terrible things, and also he should end the government shutdown. It's like, wait, don't you want him as far away from the White House as he can possibly be?
But this is the ultimate irony of what these guys do. You hate Trump. The answer isn't, oh, it's just if only our guy was in power with more power, it would be okay. The negotiation you have as a free person, that you should want as a free person, is that when you get your guy in, when it's someone that you love, if you live in a basically good system, which I would say Australia is a basically good system, America is a basically good system. I mean, we live in the freest country. I live in the freest country in the history of the world. That's basically good. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but it's pretty good, right? So what you should want is that when your guy gets in, he should be able to move things on the margins a little bit. But what the left wants is, this Green New Deal, they want a massive rejiggering of the economy. They want a true government takeover of the economy, written by a woman that's never accomplished anything in her life. She hasn't, other than becoming a congresswoman with 15,000 votes or something like that. So they've all bought it because it's just a constant usurping of power. And what I believe is that we should always be wary of that power. And I would always rather live in a society that's a little messier due to freedom than something that's a little stiffer that offers us control of how we behave. I think that's just, history would agree with me on that.
Well, we've got to let Dave go. We've got time for one more question. And to be honest, I've been waiting all interview for this.
Yeah.
The Golden Girls Ultimate Fan Club, a web series.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, that's something I did a long time ago. It's funny. So I'm a huge Golden Girls fan, and so many of the things that I believe, especially Dorothy, who was played by B. Arthur, she was an old school liberal. She really was. And so I did this show where it was an online show where I would take Golden Girls questions and silly stuff like that. But we don't have, even the Golden Girls, you can watch episodes now where they dealt with gay marriage and they dealt with Dorothy's son was getting married to a black woman, and they dealt with, euthanasia, and they dealt with all sorts of stuff that it's very rare that anything in the mainstream media deals with in an honest way anymore. So I miss those kind of shows. I also just generally, as the internet allows us to all be siphoned off into different things where you could just focus on what you like and you could just focus on what you like and I can do the same. It's like we're missing a little bit of the common stuff that brings us together. So as much as I'm a decentralized guy and I want everybody to do whatever they want, we do need spaces where we can all, so like Game of Thrones, for example, is a good thing right now, not just because it's a good show, even though I can't remember anybody's name and I actually have no idea what's going on. And the wall is for the good guys in that show, but a wall's bad in reality. Like everything's upside down, right? But the idea that we can all, or many of us can actually just watch something and then have something to talk about that's not political, I think is important because we're running out of spaces. For as enthused as I am about all of this and for how much I care about and everything, a good government and a good way to live would be that the government wouldn't be able to do enough that you'd have to think about it all day long. That's what we have in America right now. It's what you guys have here right now, that the government isn't so intrusive that it can control every part of your life. But what we're fighting against is a group of people who think that the government should. It should give you a certain amount of money. It should make sure you get free college and all these things. And of course, none of these things are free. So it's an ever-encroaching piece of, they think they're giving something to you, but they're actually taking something from you. They're taking your ability to live as a free person. It's the most important thing there is. I mean, think about any movie that you like, any great movie. So I'm a Star Wars guy, but if you like Lord of the Rings or you like The Matrix or whatever you like, it's like, what does every character do in those movies? They take it upon themselves to fix the world. There's a reason that these stories matter. You know what I mean? When Luke realized what was going on, he didn't call up the government to blow up the Death Star. He's like, all right, I'm going to make this happen. You know what I mean? It was his adventure. And there is a reason that these stories matter, because it's teaching you what I think Jordan would describe as an ancient truth about what being a human is. It's on you to figure out what is best for your life, as it's on you to figure out what's best for your life. And as long as those two things don't come in conflict, where you're going to try to take from him and he's going to try to take from you.
Which often happens with me.
Which and you guys have to deal with that personally. It's very clear. But as long as that doesn't happen, then that's the negotiation that you have in a free society. It ain't going to be perfect. Your neighbor may be doing all sorts of things that you don't like, but as long as he doesn't do it on your property, you better be okay with that. Otherwise, what is the society that you want to live in? You want to tell everybody how to think? I mean, I don't.
Exactly. All right, Dave Rubin, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, guys. Let's fix the world, huh?
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right, great.
Thanks.